Hello, and thanks for joining us today. On behalf of the Environmental Finance Center Network, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar on the water rates dashboard for Delaware and surrounding areas. My name is Tess Clark, and I work here at Syracuse University Environmental Finance Center. You can see that we have attendees from across the state of Delaware and also from the surrounding areas in Maryland. And I'm going to turn the presentation over to our expert today. Annalee Harkins is joining us from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. She is the data specialist and project manager at the Environmental Finance Center at the School of Government. So thank you, Annalee, for joining us.
Great. Thank you, Tess. Hi, all. Thank you for joining me this morning. Like Tess said, I'm Annalee Harkins. I'm the data specialist and project manager here at the Environmental Finance Center based at UNC Chapel Hill. And I'm in charge of all of the statewide rate surveys and dashboards, which, as you can see on this map here, we now have in 18 states and counting. We're adding more all the time. This is our first dashboard for the state of Delaware, and it's also the first dashboard that features data from more than one state. So that's kind of an interesting new feature that we're working on, looking at things more regionally. Okay, so the objectives for this webinar are to become familiar with the tool and the features and benefits of using it, and to learn how to compare one water system's rates with those of other systems effectively. First, I want to mention that our survey partner in this project is the University of Delaware's Water Resources Center. The Water Resources Center at the University of Delaware first conducted this rate survey way back in 1996, and they've been periodically updating it now for over 20 years. So this 2017 update of the survey data is actually the 10th time they have produced this survey and report. You can find it on their website, and we also have a link to it on our website and our project page, and I'll show you how to get there afterwards too. The additional data sources that we are using on this dashboard are the U.S. Census data. We are using the 2012 to 2017 5-year estimate of the American Community Survey, the HUC-6 watershed information from the U.S. Geological Survey, and system characteristics from the EPA's Safe Drinking Water Information System. So, who is in this survey group? Since this is serving more than one state, we do have a mix of utilities from across those 4 states. So in total, it's 50 utilities serving about 4.5 million people in the area. Most of those are municipalities, though there are some counties and districts, authorities, and for-profit systems. Those for-profit systems include the major ones in the area like Aqua, Suez, Pennsylvania American Water, New Jersey American Water, and Artesian Water Company. The municipalities in the survey range from very large cities like Baltimore and Trenton and Wilmington in Delaware to very small systems like Magnolia and Delaware City. Also, I want to mention that utilities that do not charge rates are not included here. So if it's, like a homeowners association or a mobile home park or that type of thing, or water may be just included in the rent, that's not shown here. Okay, also the majority of the rate structures represented are from Delaware, and the second most would be in Pennsylvania, as you can see there. Okay, so let's jump into the anatomy of the dashboard, kind of understanding the tool and where the different parts are located. So at the top of the dashboard, you can select your utility name from the drop-down menu. If you start typing in the name in the search bar, the utility names that match that will appear to make it easier for you. So I'm using Wilmington as the example since it is the capital of Delaware. On the upper left corner, this is where you can select the desired consumption amount. So since this dashboard is just for water, you don't have the option to select for water or sewer service. It's just only showing water. But you can slide this bar here from 0 gallons of consumption, which is effectively the base charge, all the way up to 15,000 gallons of consumption, and it stops at every 500 gallons. So you can really select what you think is applicable to your customer base. And the default setting is 5,000 gallons, which the University of Delaware used as the monthly consumption point in their survey that they did. The next part here is the map right underneath the consumption slider bar, you can see there's this very important feature, select comparison group. So this is where you choose who you are comparing your utility to. We have the map that shows where all the utilities are located. And you'll see that the state of Delaware is kind of shaded in this light gray, so you can distinguish it from the other states. We also have underneath the map this feature, which we'll get more into later, called effects of raising rates by. So you may, miss it at first glance because it's down here at the bottom, but that is a fun and interesting tool that we'll get into a little bit later. Next, on the right side, we have all of the comparison dials. So this is really the main kind of fun part of the dashboard, where you can see how you stack up against others and just standard benchmarks for yourself. The first two that we'll look at here at the top, compare yourself to your peer group. And again, that's what you've selected over here from the drop down, which right now is selected on all utilities. And so that's all utilities in the survey. So when we're talking about the comparison group, there are a lot of different options to choose from. So you can look to compare your rates to the rates of systems that are similar size, in fact, a similar number of connections, the same type of rate structure, whether that's uniform, increasing block, anything like that, the location, whether that be in the same watershed or the same watershed or sort of mileage distance. We also have demographics, so based on your customers' median household income, the type of system that you are, and your utilities financials, if those are available. So delving more into this first style, bill comparison. This is a really important one. I want to explain what these different colored bars mean. So the darkest green band in the middle is representing the middle 50% of utilities in this peer group. So half of all the utilities have bills that fall within this range here in the middle. It's a good place to be. You're right with the pack if you're in here. The light green bands on either side of this dark green band in the middle are 15% lower and higher than that middle percent, 50%. So that's from 10 to 25% on this left side and between 75 and 90% on the right side. So you're a little lower or higher than most of the utilities in your peer group. If you're looking at both of those greens combined from edge to edge, then you're looking at 80% of the utilities in your peer group. So that's really the large chunk of the people that you're comparing yourself to. The yellow bands are where you're either going to be in the lowest or highest of your peer group. So this is the bottom and top 10%. So these are areas where you might be a little concerned. Maybe you're not charging enough for your services and not able to recover your operating expenses. Or maybe you're charging more than your customers can afford. So it all depends. Okay, looking at the next style, we have this conservation signal on the upper right, and this is the price for 1,000 gallons after 10,000 gallons have been used. So this is really looking at people that are consuming large amounts of water, more than what we would think of as typical. So they could be doing a lot of irrigation, they might just have a large household and a lot of water needs, or maybe they have a leak they don't know about. But either way, what we're looking at is what sort of pricing signal does the utility send to its customers in terms of conserving water after using a lot of it. So in this example, we see that this utility is sending a fairly strong pricing signal to promote conservation because they are charging $7.03, which is within the 75th percentile of the quartiles in the comparison group. So yeah, they're sending a pretty strong conservation signal to their customers. Okay, now down to these lower two dials down here. These two, instead of comparing yourself to your peer group that you've selected, these are comparing you to established benchmarks. So this first one, you might be wondering, well, why does it have that blinder on? You can't really see what it is. In this case, it's because we do not have financial data programmed into the dashboard for these states. However, I'm going to show you a way around that. So if you click this little blue question mark that the arrow is pointing to, it does give you an explanation of why that data is not available, and how to use the edit data or add utility tool, which we're going to use a little later. So if you're wondering, there's an explanation right there. So pretending that the dial was populated with data, this is what it looks like. First, we have the red zone, which goes from 0 up to 1. And this means that you are basically not covering your operating expenses, including depreciation. So you're not able to just even cover those day-to-day things to keep your plan running, which is very concerning. The next section is the yellow one, is also kind of the smallest one, is between 1 and 1.2, which means you are able to cover your operating expenses, including depreciation. But it could be problematic in the long term if you're not then also able to save for things like infrastructure, repair and maintenance, and unexpected disasters and that kind of thing. This green section is really where you're able to both pay for your everyday day-to-day needs, as well as save for long-term goals of all kinds, whether it's eventually building out your system, repairing your system, having a rainy day fund, unexpected revenue shortfalls. In this green area, you're really able to kind of be prepared for all of those sorts of situations. We also have another yellow slice at the end there, where it's like, well, maybe your revenues are looking a little too good, where it's, perhaps concerning for affordability or other issues where you might want to, take a better look at your finances there. Okay, moving on to the next dial in the lower right, we have median affordability. So this is, as you can see, on a continuum from this very light kind of beige color all the way to a darker orange. So this is looking at the percentage of median household income for the community that the utility is serving. How much are they spending on water bills annually? So obviously the lower end is the lighter colors, the darker end, the darker colors are spending more money. Affordability is a complicated issue, which we do recognize. That's why we're calling it median affordability and not just general affordability, because this is based on just the median household income of the community. So again, if you click on this little blue question mark next to the dial, you'll be able to see a fuller explanation of what that actually means, where the community is that this utility is tied to. So here it says Flemington, as well as the data that's behind it, and some links to other tools that give you a more in-depth look at affordability. All right, moving on from the dials portion of the rates dashboard, there are also these other tabs. So the dials are on this first tab, rates comparison, but this second tab, characteristics, does show a lot of other interesting things that can help you, compare and see where you are. So we have details about system characteristics from SIGWIP, such as the number of connections and the service population. We also have some demographic data from the census, and this is also showing for your comparison group. So you can select from this dropdown, choose another comparison group, and these numbers will change based on what you selected. So you'll see what your selected utility is, and then you can compare it to the median for your peer group, as well as just the general statewide statistics for household size, median household income, and poverty rate. The last tab over here on the right, the links tab, has additional information on the survey, how the dashboard was funded and created, as well as state-specific resources over here on the left, and additional tools and resources more generally for all kinds of water and wastewater systems. And all of these links here are for free tools and more information that anyone can use. We have them all available on our website, so they can be downloaded and provide some really helpful insights for your utility. Okay, now let's take a live look at some of these additional features that can be used. We have effective raising rates and edit data or add utility. So let me just pull this up. Okay, so on our main EFC website here, I'm going to go to the dashboard by going to Resources and Utility Financial Sustainability and Rates Dashboard. We'll see that map again of all the states. I'm going to click on Delaware. If I can, it's so tiny. No offense, Delaware. Okay, so here we have the dashboard. Click OK. And starting here just with the first utility alphabetically, but I'm going to go back to Flemington. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is this cost recovery dial. And we know that the data is not available, but that doesn't mean that we can't still use this tool. So I looked up the comprehensive annual financial reports for Delaware, for Wilmington, Delaware, which were available online. Looked at the pages devoted to the proprietary funds, and we can input this data into the dashboard and then populate that dial. So what I'm going to do is go to this upper right button here, edit data or add utility. And I'm going to create a so-called clone of Wilmington, so it's a copy that we can use. And for annual operating revenues, I'm just going to pop this information in here. So we have 83,541,753. Let's see if I can remember that number. 83. Oh no. 753. Okay, great. And then the second number, annual operating expenses, including depreciation. I do want to point out that we always include depreciation when we're looking at these operating revenues and expenses, because we want utilities to really take into account that they are going to have to eventually replace their equipment at some point. Whether or not they want to, it's still going to be depreciating in value. So it's really important to take that into account and not just, you know, think that you're doing better off than you are because you're not including that eventual depreciation expense that you're going to have to pay anyway. So annual operating expenses, including depreciation, we have right here, 63,612,248. Oh, I've already forgot it. I must have 612, thank you. 612,248. Okay, and we have the fiscal year financial data, which is 2017. We're going to click Save. And now we see this dial is populated, which is great. If we have we can select this again, edit. If we have other fiscal years that we want to look at, again, we can plot that in here. If we have, you know, perhaps we're thinking about changing the rates, we could also put that in here, or changing the annual median household income. Maybe if your area is going through, you know, a bit of a tough time economically, you want to kind of anticipate how that's going to affect your customers by maybe lowering that a bit and see how it does. So that's that. You can also, as you can see here, create a new utility. So if your utility was not included in the survey, you can still add it in this way. And again, see it on the dashboard, see those dials populated, and see how you compare to everyone else. So you can put in the name, you can select, this is at 5,000 gallons because that's the kind of default consumption amount, but you can select any consumption amount, put in that bill amount. You can also put in these additional things as well from the census data or from your own financial records, and those will go in there as well. So if we have this kind of fake utility that I'm making, 5,000 gallons, I'm just gonna put in this. And, you know, maybe I'll save that for later. I just want to see how this looks. And this fake utility that I just made, my utility, is falling pretty squarely in the median, which is good to know. So if we go back to our copy of Wilmington here, we see that according to their 2017 comprehensive annual financial report, they're in a pretty good place in terms of cost recovery. And again, if we click this dial, this is going to show those numbers that we put in and explain what it means in case you forget, you know, what the different cutoffs are between 1 and 1.2 and all of that. Okay, so now let's go back to our regular Wilmington. All right, so this feature down at the bottom, effective raising rates by, is an interesting one that you can use to kind of gauge how it will affect your customers and your bottom line in different ways. So let's see, if we planned on raising rates, let's say 30%, this does go from 0 all the way up to 150%. You can see there's kind of this shadow line of where it used to be down here. And then this new darker needle is where it will be now if you did increase those rates by 30%. Same with affordability over here. The affordability, median affordability would notch a little bit up, and the conservation pricing signal would be really increased to a point where it's like you're definitely encouraging your customers to use or to conserve water based on pricing. We also have this kind of disclaimer over here on the left that does explain how it is, kind of a blunt tool, this little slider bar here. But we do have other more complex models that you can use. And here's a link here to our water and wastewater rates analysis model. And this also, in this slider here, assumes that for every 10% increase in price, you're assuming a 3% drop in demand. And that's based on economic models that have existed for quite some time and are published in all these papers and everything. So that's what we're basing that on. So for every increase, the more you increase, you are going to get some drop in demand from people just trying to conserve and save money. Oh, and this link here, I just want to show you the water and wastewater rates analysis model. It's free to download. It's a lot more comprehensive, and we even have instructions on how to use it and everything. So that's another resource for you there. Okay, we go back down to 0. I want to bring up all of the different comparison groups here. So the ones that you can see are grayed out. Here we have a similar number of water accounts. That means that there aren't enough utilities in that peer group to provide effective comparison. So if there are fewer than 10, we are not going to show that comparison group because it's just, the numbers would get weird. Like, what is the median of 4, for example? It would just skew things too much. So we do have that cutoff of there has to be at least 10 utilities in the comparison group. So these two are grayed out because there aren't enough. But we do have these other ones available using same rate structure type. You can see it doesn't change that much. They're using an increasing block. They're still falling within a similar range. Ownership type, which in this case is a municipality. They're a little more in the middle there towards the median. Same water source type. So this is based on surface water, groundwater, and purchase systems. We do not differentiate between groundwater purchase systems and surface water purchase systems, because either way, you're going to be purchasing that water and you're going to have to kind of pass on some of that cost to your customers. So according to surface water systems, they're a little higher in that range of the median there. We also have congressional districts in case you have any political issues that involve water there. And these mileage distance. So you have 25 miles as well as 50 miles. And again, we can see these now going into those other states of Maryland and Pennsylvania and New Jersey over here. And it does tell you at the bottom how many rate structures are compared of that total group. Okay, are there any systems on the line that would like to take a look at their own utility on the dashboard? Any volunteers?
I will let you know if someone wants to volunteer by sending me a chat or writing in the question dialog box. I can field that for us.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tess.
Sure.
Yes, if anyone's brave enough to volunteer, we'll certainly take a look at the dashboard. But assuming there's no one that wants to take a look, and of course you can do it in your own time, let's get back to the presentation. So you may be wondering, okay, this is a nifty tool, but when should I use this and why should I use this? So as part of your annual rate review, definitely it's great to see how you compare meaningfully to others in your peer group, not just people that are, maybe the next town over, or, that you think of as doing more well off than you. You can also use it when you're presenting to perhaps your board or other decision makers. You can show where you actually fall. And I know utilities that have gotten in touch with me, I've seen their presentations and everything where they have screenshots of the dashboard and they can show to their boards, this is where we are, this is how we're doing. We're in the lowest 10% and our affordability is looking good, so we could afford a rate increase over time. This is something that we should do in order to make sure that we have those financial sustainability metrics that we need to meet. You can also use this for explaining to customers or the media. We do want it to be a tool that's kind of easy to understand, but that does have a robust amount of information. So again, all of those little blue question marks next to each of the dials has a lot more information on what went into making that dial, what the colors mean, and what the data behind them are. And if you're a private system, you can also use this kind of as a point for jumping off on your PUC rate case. So that's something that can be really useful if you're trying to see, what you can really perhaps get approved or see how you're comparing to other systems there. Okay, so does anyone have any questions or feedback, or if you've decided you want to see how you're doing on the dashboard, just let me know.
Great. So we do actually have a question, and I think it would be awesome if someone wanted to volunteer to put their utility in. So we're still waiting for a volunteer, but we do have a question. The question is it believed that the 3% decline in consumption for a 10% rate increase is permanent?
Ooh, interesting question. I don't know the exact answer on that. I would assume that if everything else is staying the same, if the community's median household income and kind of economic status is staying the same, I would think it would probably, that 3% decrease would stay the same as well. We saw in the drought here that happened about 10 years ago, a lot of utilities changed their rate structures and increased their rates in order to promote conservation. And those effects really stayed for a long time. And overall, people were using less water than they were the previous decade. So once you kind of get into those habits, it does kind of become the new normal. So I don't have a hard answer for you, but that's what I would guess.
Awesome, great. So please continue to send us your questions. We did just get a practical question, logistical question about the slides, and the slides will be available. We typically process them and post them on our website, which is efcnetwork.org, and we also send out an email when they're posted, and that usually takes about a week to 2 weeks. So you will know just as soon as possible when you can download them, and we also record the webinars and post those as well. So everyone that's interested, you will have access to these materials. Okay, and waiting on a couple more questions. In the meantime, I do want to make sure that before we get too deep into questions that I don't forget to send you our evaluation. So I'm going to send out an evaluation link. And when you get a chance, if you could fill that out for us, that would be great because we really appreciate your feedback. All right, and I think we can get, okay, so here's another comment. This is related to the 3%, the consumption question about consumption decline.
Sure.
So the comment is, we have found that when municipalities raise their sewer rates, which are based on metered water consumption, this has a longer residual impact on consumption. Does that make sense to you too, Annalie?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you're basing your sewer bills on the water, then, and often, sewer is more expensive than water services, that for sure makes sense to me since they're directly related there. That's interesting though.
Okay. Oh, here's a question. What kinds of specs do you need to use the dashboard? Can you use it in any kind of browser, or does it need a specific, does it work on mobile?
Yes, good question. We do have it so that we made it so it's compatible with all types of browsers, whether that be Chrome, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Opera, Edge, any of the main ones. We also have it so it's available to use on iPads, not iPods, iPods. Oh my gosh, I said it again. iPads. I'm sorry. As well as phones. So you should be able to access the dashboard from whatever sort of device you're using, though it may be easier to use it on sort of a bigger screen so that you can select things more easily. But it is available to use on different devices like phones, different browsers, and iPads.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we'll give you a few more minutes to submit questions. And again, if someone wants to volunteer their utility to go through the dashboard, that's okay too. But we also have a couple closing polls that we like to make sure everyone gets a chance to answer because they're just sort of housekeeping. So I'm going to launch those now. The first one is, would you like to subscribe to the Environmental Finance Center blog? We talked about this in the beginning of the presentation, but this is a blog that talks about financial management, success stories, some of the case studies from our technical assistance programs. So if you want to subscribe, let us know. If you don't, or you're already subscribed, you can also tell us as well. So it looks like we have a couple people that still need to respond. So I'm going to give you 2 more seconds. And 1. All right, I'm going to close this one. Okay, and then this is just another quick housekeeping question. We offer free technical assistance to utilities that to certain utilities. So if you're interested in receiving in-depth technical assistance and you need some help, you can respond here and we'll put you in touch with someone that can maybe help you through the process. So select yes, no, or not sure. I'd like more details and we can follow up with you. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple more seconds to respond here. I'm going to do 3, 2, and 1. Okay. And with that, I don't see any more questions. Annalie, do you have any other comments or some closing comments?
Sure. So as you can see, my contact information is up on the slide. So in case you think of something later or down the road, have a question, you can get in touch with me. Of course, it's also listed on our website. And, all these blue states, like I said, we're always expanding. If you in particular have an interest in a dashboard in your state, definitely get in touch with us. We have a lot of different opportunities for creating more dashboards and, looking into expanding to other states and really providing this tool as much as we can to as many people as we can.
All right, great. Well, thank you, everyone, and hope to see you at another webinar soon.
Thanks so much.